The Economist has decided to write another article or another story on Israel, sort of an opinion piece. For those who remember, we did cover one of the Economist articles before in the past. They wrote something called, what the title was, Israel's Alone. And it had a picture of an Israeli flag sort of being torn down and being the only one in sort of like a sandy field. So, you joke about Israel, you say that Israel is in a terrible state. And then when Israel starts defending yourself, you talk about Israel's hubris and how their overexpansion is actually going to be the end of Israel. So today, I think we'll go through the whole article. It's not that long. Joining me today is Alex. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Alex, anything you like to say before we jump into the article?
let's just let's just jump right in. It's such a great article of it's just hard. I mean, how on earth do you spell Benjamin Netanyahu's name wrong? I mean, that shows how much you're a real journalist you're a real, Israel buff, aren't you?
Oh, I didn't even notice that, but now I see it. And I also saw that it misspelled Hezbollah. They spelled it as Hezbollah. So there's also that.
Well, his that's not necessarily wrong, but this one is actually completely wrong.
Well, let's jump to the article. Alex, if you want to comment on something specific, you can stop me, but I think we can go part by part. So let's start. The name is Israel's expansionism is a danger to others and itself. It risks turning hubris into disaster. So starting the article, it is hard to believe today, but 18 months ago, Israel was in grave peril, surrounded by enemies, bickering with its main ally in Washington, and reeling after Hamas's attack caused the most murderous day in the country's history. The Jewish state seemed vulnerable and confused. Now, by contrast, Israel is rampant. It is still fighting, occasionally in Lebanon and Syria, more permanently against Palestinian militants in the West Bank, and once more on an even larger scale in Gaza, where an American sponsored ceasefire has broken down. But this time, Israel is fighting on its own terms and with full American backing. You might think that makes it safe again, yet its renewed military supremacy comes with the danger of overextension and bitter strife at home. As its government charges ahead, it risks turning hubris into disaster. All right, Alex, anything to say on that?
Well, I mean, it is, yeah, okay. If it wasn't written, if the rest of the article wasn't such nonsense, and it was written by someone who was like maybe an analyst, then I could see, yeah, there's definitely like, okay, the Druze have a lot of pull in the IDF. Um, I mean, what do I think? They control the north, the Northern Command and the IDF, right? When I hear things being said by the defense minister, like we have to go and defend the Druze in Syria, I start to get a little nervous because that reminds me a lot of Lebanon, right? And the absolute just what we ended up getting stuck into there with people who, the Christians in Lebanon, we had zero in common with. They were also terrorists. And all of this kind of stuff, like our Jewish citizens are, good people, and yes, they do control the Northern Command and the IDF. And when they want to do something, it will be difficult to say no to them, right? The ones that have, but we have, we don't want to protect them, okay? The Syrian Druze that live in Syria. Just the other day I was hearing that, I think it was Israel Katz issued a warning to the jihadis, don't harm the Druze. Well, why is it that they were harming the Druze, right, that day? Well, they weren't harming them. One of them had murdered someone with an RPG. So they were coming to literally take him to prison. And all of a sudden, here you have Israel Katz like chiming in, like, stay the hell out of it. It's nothing to do with us, right? Unless you genuinely want to annex it, in which case, annex it, make them our citizens, and call it a day. but we should not be getting involved in the civil and ethnic conflicts of the Middle East. And by the way, all of these things like, oh, well, the Jews are our brothers. Well, the Jews in Lebanon are freaking terrorists. And there are one Druze tribe that, yes, I would agree, they are definitely on looking as if they may be on the side of freedom. There's other Jewish tribes that are actual, they're actual jihadis, not jihadis, they're just jihadis of their clan. So yeah, but it's all. But the thing is that it's all coming from this completely kind of bogus, like fake concern, faux concern. You're not concerned about Israel. So, and then the rest of the article is, I mean, it's actually just, I don't know what to say. It's actually just, it's just nonsense. But yeah, I do agree. We shouldn't be overextending ourselves for conflicts that have nothing to do with us, right? But definitely the Palestinians, I mean, if they're our problem, right? Whereas like the Syrian Jews, I can't see how that's our problem. Otherwise, let's just take over the whole of the Middle East.
Yeah.
Why not? I would be happier for us just to do that instead of all of this. We have to defend these people. Well, you have to make you think you have to make a case for that, especially like that. As far as I could see, in that specific instance that Israel Katz intervened, that was a murderer. That is someone who actually had murdered someone. Now, I don't know the full facts of the case, but I was I trust the source that that revealed that.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to sort of nation's responsibility towards its citizens, it's simply to protect their rights. There is no like this idea of like not even conquest, but basically like being a savior of like all the innocent people across the world and to go and save all of them. Now, Israel is currently, technically you could say, occupying parts of like the actual Syria, like beyond the Golan Heights, which I think is absolutely makes sense for the areas when it comes to strategic, again, defense of their own people, as well as striking targets within Syria that can potentially threat Israelis. But yeah, if there is an actual sort of an idea that Israel would actually annex like all of southern Syria, let's say Damascus, maybe not directly Damascus, but everything south of Damascus, then yeah, sort of like do that and then figure that out. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this idea of uh, and going now back to the article again, this like nobody cares about Israel. They it didn't care. The idea that now that Israel is finally defending itself, is finally
Mm-hmm.
like deciding to
Yes.
do maybe something in Gaza. Now, whoa. Now it's hubris. Now you're like overextending
Yeah.
yourself. Now
Yeah.
that you actually want to, yeah. I mean, imagine when D-Day happened. Oh, whoa. We are
Mm-hmm.
overextending ourselves. We are actually trying to, go somewhere further. I mean, that's simply ridiculous. But let's read a bit more. So, continuing. The improvement in Israel's security has been remarkable and welcome. Since the atrocities of October 7, 2023, Israel has attacked and greatly weakened Hamas. Military action in Lebanon has decapitated Hezbollah. Iran's influence across the Middle East has been shattered as its proxies in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria have foundered. Israel fended off two big Iranian missile barrages with America's help and struck back against Iran's air defenses. I'll read a bit more. However, the Israeli government has drawn two worrying conclusions from this success. One is that cruel tactics work. Having killed tens of thousands of civilians in Gaza, it has again withheld aid and shut off basic services in what looks like a violation of international law. In Gaza, it is preparing for a new occupation as part of what may become a huge ground operation. Shameful plans for ethnic cleansing are gaining currency, encouraged by President Donald Trump's vision of the American takeover and the resettlement of Gaza's population. The Israeli government has approved the establishment of an agency for, in quotes, voluntary departure of Palestinians. Since last year, it has engaged in a rapid de facto annexation of the West Bank, expanding Israeli settlements, forcing tens of thousands of Palestinians from their homes, and allowing violent settlers to rampage unchecked. A push for formal annexation is gathering pace. Thank you, Bonnie, for your super chat. So I'll go to you, Alex, but it starts
Mhm.
off, yeah, Hamas did, try to basically kill all the Jews on October 7th. Yeah, maybe they did something, but let's ignore that. But Israel, actually responding and, killing some civilians in process because Hamas is hiding behind human shields and then trying to actually do some actions in Hamas in Gaza. That is pretty much on par on October 7, if not worse.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't, I don't, okay. Um, Again, you can see how this person, in this person's mind, this all totally makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Because they do think that it is cruel, right, to withhold supplies to the enemy, right? So if you do think that it's cruel, you can understand they're coming to you. Okay, not only that, but this person thinks that it's cruel to let people leave from a place of war, right?
Yeah, it,
Um,
it even uses the volunteer, and I've seen that basically
I mean, yeah.
Israel has set up under the Ministry of Defense has set up sort
Hmm.
of like a organization that is supposed to work for voluntary deportation or departure
Hmm.
of Palestinians who wish to leave, and everybody in the media has been referring to as voluntary in quotes. Now,
Hmm.
I still haven't seen any like idea that they would forcibly remove any Palestinians, and many Palestinians do want to leave. What is a problem with allowing them to leave?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I get it. That there is a problem because you think that
Yeah,
you want the Israelis to be right there, dealing with these people, dealing with these savages, being forced to reconcile a refugee problem that doesn't, that really doesn't, from a war that happened, 80 years ago. So if you think that's what you think, that's what the, author thinks, that it needs that it's Israel shouldn't be that strong. Israel has to be nice and weak, because then maybe it will, be forced into accepting, a two-state solution with all of Jerusalem as the capital. And yeah, okay, fine. I mean, some of you are going to have to die, and that's the price of doing business, right? It's uh, it, it's just truly it's truly pathetic. I really don't know what else to say to this person. Overextension and bitter strife at home. As the government charges ahead, it risks turning hubris into disaster. Well, I mean, I do agree, right, that there could be some degree of maybe like disaster in getting stuck in a protracted war against, Giuliani's forces, right? That would be that is a real disaster, and that could be the result of hubris. But it's all of it's the actual other stuff, right? You think that just defending yourself is pure hubris, so what disaster would that be? A bigger disaster than being fighting a war on seven fronts? Bigger disaster than October 7th? But yeah, a bigger disaster than that. Even us being involved in the Lebanese civil war it was not as bad as October 7th and fighting a seven front war.
yeah. Continuing with the article, the government's second conclusion is that after deterrence collapsed on October 7, it must protect itself by creating buffer zones and striking perceived threats as early as possible. The army is attacking Lebanon, even if that discredits Lebanese groups who are working to shut Hezbollah out of power, rather than wait to see if the new government in Damascus can put Syria together again. Israel is bombing it. That same logic could well lead to a preemptive strike against Iran to prevent it acquiring a nuclear weapon. Having been softened up by Israeli bombing, the Islamic Republic's defenses are weaker than they have been in decades. So again, I'd like to see the groups in Lebanon that want Hezbollah out of power. The fact is that they haven't done anything this whole time. UNIFIL hasn't done anything this whole time. We know who Al Jolani is. We know what kind of thing he will most likely pursue. What is this idea of like waiting? That's exactly why October 7 happened, because they waited until they struck them first, until Israel gets struck. They refused to recognize the fact that Hamas is a threat that will act on it and will do something about Israel. And what is
Mhm.
he saying? They should wait again for another October 7th.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obviously such a crazy like lens by which to see it, because Israel destroying Lebanese, is so destroying Hezbollah as they're building up. That helps these groups in Lebanon who, they must feel pretty. I would feel a lot of animosity towards Hezbollah if I was, a Sunni, because they killed, Rafiq Hariri, that they were initially formed to basically slaughter them. And so if anything, we're giving them a help, right? We're helping them. We're helping the Lebanese government by destroying the biggest thing that threatens them. And again, I would also even go for the same as Jolani, because who is it that we're bombing in Syria? Who? We're bombing the Iranians, right? We're bombing the Shia axis, which helps, Jolani and his people. Not that I think that we should do. We're not doing it to help them. We're not doing it to help the Lebanese, and we're not doing it to help the Syrians. But it's an obvious byproduct, okay? And so it's, who says it's the wrong thing to do? Who says you think it's the wrong thing to do? And by the way, the Iranian people as well viewed Obama and abandoning them as they were trying to, they were getting, it was going in a direction that looked as if they could actually have overthrown the regime, and they were abandoned. Okay, totally abandoned. So if your this person's assessment of it is that Hezbollah should be able to do whatever the F it wants. The Syrian militias as well, the Syrian Shia militias as well. You can't harm them, can't bomb them. Um, you know, and in addition to that, you also the Iranian people, they have to what, they have to just deal with whatever is whatever. So yeah, so they say that they're weakened, right? And this is actually something that we see a lot with like Shia history. Like the Shias are quite like I don't know what you would say. Like, yeah, okay, fine. They're used to defeats. They're used to it, right? They're not used to great military victories. They like to they embrace them actually because they use them as a way to come back. So imagine how just with this person, this great analyst. I don't know what they're an analyst of. I mean, definitely not terrorism or war, or the economy. But yeah, I don't. If you're analyzing this kind of properly, um, they're going to be 500 times more violent, right? When they get a nuclear weapon, if they get a nuclear weapon, right? Which will threaten everybody, because they'll figure out as well how to make the ICBMs go much farther.
Yeah, and again, just to build upon the point you make about any sort of person in the Middle East who do want something better should want Iranian proxies to be wiped out from the face of the earth. I mean, imagine if we were bombing France or Germany during World War II, and do you think the French and German resistance were like, no, no, stop bombing us? This like no, they, like bomb the hell out of them. Like we want to go back. We want to get rid of these people, even if it means at the cost of possibly lives or possibly getting some buildings destroyed. This is about more than one building or one life. This is about like a whole nation being able to take back the sort of power from Hezbollah. And the fact is that we are not seeing anything close to that yet. Um, Continuing with the article, this is a dangerous path for Israel in the region with the Palestinians and at home. In the region, Israel will struggle to maintain military dominance if it demands too much of its own forces. It has citizen army of reservists who serve at moments of national peril. Soldiers who have families to care for and businesses to run cannot live their lives if they are permanently being called up. In addition, Israel still depends on America to project force, but Mr. Trump is not a dependable ally, especially if a war against Iran becomes drawn out. Even if his support endures, the Democrats could be back in power in 2029 and they would be less tolerant of annexation. And last, as repeated Israeli strikes around the region lead to popular backlash, Arab leaders will gradually come to reflect their people's hostility. Uh, in time that could threaten Israel's regional alliances with Egypt and Jordan and with several other Arab countries through the Abraham Accords. So, yeah, Alex, maybe you want to defend your own people and Israelis, but what about the Egyptians?
Hmm.
What about the feelings of the Democrats in the White House? What about the
Hmm.
feelings of they mentioned Abraham Accords. People should look up who are the nations in the Abraham Accords. If you look at the map of the Middle East, you most likely will not even be able to find those nations because two of them are not even there because it's Morocco and Sudan. And the last one, I think, I'm not sure, United Arab Emirates or whoever is the uh,
Bahrain and United Arab Emirates. Yeah.
Bahrain.
Hmm.
Yeah, again, and even the idea that Egypt and Jordan are sort of technically, I guess they are Israeli and American allies, but looking realistically at the situation, I mean, come on, this idea that Israel needs to appease the sort of these Middle Eastern nations when it comes to its own defense, uh, simply ridiculous.
Yeah, and so people also should understand a little bit about the so-called Abraham Accords. That's not what they call it in Arabic, right? There is no such way to call it in Arabic. It's called the Joint Defense Alliance. They would not use that term, right? Like like the Alliance of Ibrahim or something. They would never, because to them it's irrelevant that the Jews have defamed and defaced Ibrahim, right? Because they're not going in there. The Muslims have a lot of very funny interpretations of Islam. I don't. I think it's because Muhammad couldn't read, so he would hear nonsense that people would tell him, and so therefore, if you read the Quran, it has all of this gobbledygook. I mean, it's all gobbledygook, but I'm saying if you're saying like it's very clear that if you read it, that the whoever is telling this information has been like, so people have told him information like, guess what? Today I told Muhammad that our God is Ezra. Like I don't know. This is very funny. So they're not on the same page as as the Jews, right? So they wouldn't use those terms. And I think that even would go pretty far because to us we think it's the people of Abraham and they're coming together to yeah, for peace. No, we're coming together for war, right? That's why we're going together. If you this is the joint defense agreements, right? So, um, and again, like you could Israel could do anything it wants to anybody. It would endear them to us very much because they'd be like, oh, they're tough as shit. That's what they, really. It again, this is like it's obvious as well being written by someone who is super Western, knows zero about the Middle East. I mean, no zero. I would even say about the conflict. They're saying Israel is doing all of this stuff and it's making them look like bad to meanie weenie. They're making themselves look meanie weenie, and that's not good for me as a European. But I mean, complete lack of context, a complete lack of historical understanding, historical understanding and cultural.
Well, yeah, when it comes to lack of understanding, let's actually read the next paragraph. As for the
Yeah, because
Palestinian,
no,
do you want
go
to?
ahead, go ahead.
Like,
No, I was
uh,
gonna say, yeah, go ahead.
as for the Palestinians, Israel cannot simply cancel their yearning for a homeland. After the horrors of October 7, most Israelis oppose the creation of a Palestinian state or the incorporation of Palestinians as full citizens inside Israel. But other options are dire. Formal annexation of Palestinian land would lead either to ethnic cleansing or the creation of non-citizens without full rights, or to further co-opting up Palestinians in tiny, non-viable statelets. If those policies are enacted, it will be an affront to the values on which Israel was founded. Now, I find it really interesting that he say Israelis oppose both incorporating Palestinians and full citizens and establishing Palestinian state. If all of West Bank and Gaza was annexed, eventually they would become citizens unless they would get out. So I don't even
I
understand what
no, I
like
understand. I understand it very well because they're mentioning the statelets. So I know that I know exactly who they've been talking to.
who. Well, tell us.
Well, I know. I'm just saying it's. I know exactly. They're getting their information from Ronen Bar and Ronen Berman. That's where they're getting their information from. Again, with the statelets, okay, the 8-state solution is the most viable one, the most viable. That you annex area, most of Area C, and the parts of Area A, you turn into Emirates, Palestinian Emirates, right? Which is obvious. You give it over to the clans. I don't know if I'm for this policy or I'm anti this policy, but this policy is very popular. It was actually my university professor who I think came up with the policy. He even wrote a book called The 8-State Solution. And Ronen Bar of the Shabak. Mordechai Kedar was, I think he was in military. He was very high up in military intelligence. So this was his plan. And Ronen Bar is like, oh, this plan, the statelets, they wanna have the tribal clans handed over. I mean, it's just so this person probably has one source, and and it's true. I would say that the people who support the 8-state solution, they are neither for annexation and making of the citizens, nor are they for an actual, state, right? And it is a solution which I welcome hearing because it is better to hear of this solution. I don't, like I say, I really don't know what I think about it because I haven't seen it yet. How it would work because it's just a theory. But I do appreciate that someone is coming up with a solution. That's not the 2-state solution, or I don't know.
Well, let's read a bit more. Overextension may be the most corrosive within Israel. The trauma of October 7 ought to have united Israeli society. However, the country is once again divided. A clear majority of Israelis support negotiations with Hamas and a withdrawal from Gaza in order to bring the remaining hostages their home. They believe that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is prosecuting the war to appease the hard right, whose support he needs to prevent his government from collapsing. Increasingly, army reservists wonder if they are fighting a war in the national interest or in the interest of minority that happens to wield influence. So I think, again, this shows the lack of understanding of Israeli politics. If Netanyahu wanted to have a deal, I think Yeshatid offered, hey, if you make a ceasefire deal that will go further, we'll hold your
Yeah,
government, we'll
yeah,
help you until the end of the election, and then we can have another election. Like this idea that um, Ben Gvir alone is like holding like Netanyahu by I will not be I'm not I
yeah,
won't say by what. It's simply ridiculous.
yeah. I even listened, to an interview by that Bibi did with Gadi Taub. It's a really good interview. You should listen to it. It's a new one that he did a few days ago, and he fully says, yeah. And by the way, he's being interviewed by someone who is totally against all hostage deals, right? And he says, no, I want there to be a deal, but I can't have there be a deal that is gonna, but Hamas were not negotiating. So it's very difficult in democracies for one person to have the power to hold back all of the bureaucracy from, happening. It would get out, because it would have been in the press, the Israeli press. They would have happily they will happily, print actual rumors, like, they printed lies that Bibi had cancer and stuff, like anything you want to say about Bibi, they will print it. And this entire kind of thing about, Bibi single-handedly sabotaging the hostage deal, it doesn't even have it doesn't have any legs. And this person, I do think I understand who their sources probably are, because it's the same sources, who they say that, oh no, we speak for the majority of Israelis, and it's like, Yair Lapid, you speak for the majority of the Israelis, the guy who polls at 6 seats. Yeah, you speak for the majority of Israelis. I don't. The majority. You don't even speak for the majority of people in your neighborhood in Tel Aviv, right? So
We
I don't know. It's the laziest. Sorry, it's very lazy. This article is very
Yeah, I
lazy.
mean, like, as someone who tries to watch even the sort of the intricacies of Israeli like parliamentary politics, and we've covered pretty much every single time
Mhm.
some party left the coalition or brought in or
Mhm.
have been supporting it, but formally withdrew and have been like blocking certain things. The fact is that like this really shows, this is sort of like a Wikipedia thing of it. You just look up, oh, like these two far right parties can withdraw their support and Netanyahu's government would fall. So that means Netanyahu is basically controlled by these two parties. It's
I
like
wonder. Yeah, I wonder if
uh,
it's been written by an Israeli. I mean, an Israeli that comes from that mindset.
we have Akira has been a member for 9 months. Thank you so much. He says Binyamin is the original Palestinian pronunciation. So I'm wondering if
It's actually maybe the region. It's the region that I live in called Benjamin. Yeah.
well, let's read a bit more. This comes as the government is showing a distressing eagerness for
Mhm.
democratic backsliding. It is using aggressive tactics to curb the independence of Israel's institutions. In recent days, the cabinet has endorsed the firing of the head of Shin Bet, the domestic security agency, and of the attorney general. Both decisions are fiercely contested. The two officials happen to be involved in the investigations of Mr. Netanyahu's aides over allegations of graft and other sins. At the heart of Israel's crisis is a campaign by religious Zionists who see their vision of Israel as a country embracing the biblical lands of Gaza, Judea, and Samaria, as they call Palestinian territory, being thwarted by the country's secular institutions. So I haven't been following too closely both these firings as well as this implication of religious Zionists. But
Oh,
yeah, Alex, as somebody being a bit closer to this, what do you make of that?
what a load of. Okay, so this is the thing. People. Okay. The position of the attorney general is not to be a person who is at war with the executive branch. Is to advise the executive branch in Israel. This is what the position is. Is to advise the executive branch in legal affairs. It is not to be at war with the executive branch and to do everything in your power to subvert the executive branch and the Knesset. So if the executive branch does not have faith in his legal advisor and is scared of his legal advisor, then that they have made themselves superfluous, right? And again, Renan Barr, uh, you're trying for even forget the whole. Renan Barr is not there to be a check and balance, right, on power. Okay, he is not, but he seems to think that it's his role to investigate people, to invest to. Okay, the Shabbat actually threatens who is responsible for Bibi's security, right? Threatened to reveal private information about Bibi's family, right? So if that was me, I would be very scared, okay, because the Shabak has already caused one, prime minister to have been assassinated, right? Maybe there could be another. Why not, right? And that's what I would be thinking because I would be paranoid if I was Bibi. The only person that's standing between me and a bullet through my head is the Shabak, who are useless because it rots from the top. It's the leadership that are useless. The people who are actually in the Shabak are amazing, right? You fine analysts, fine people. But so this person doesn't understand any of this, and just thinks, oh, the attorney general is there to be at war with Bibi. No, that's not what. So that's not their position. The whole idea of separation of power is so that too much power is not focused with one person. It's not so that each department can literally be at war with each other and nothing can actually get done. That's not the purpose of it. And if Bibi had the legal right to fire Ronen Bar, who is responsible for October 7th, and by the way, so is Bibi, but whatever. But Bibi will get fired from the election probably. Then this person doesn't seem to think that they should. Oh no, they probably think it was all the fact that two people that maybe were working for Netanyahu maybe got like $500 one time from Qatar, and that's what caused October 7th. Yeah, that's probably what did it.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered some of the changes coming to the Supreme Court on the yesterday's episode on the reality show, and the fact is that Israeli system, as any parliamentary system, is already lacking a lot when it comes to separation of powers. But I won't comment too much on sort of the internal firings, since when it comes to these like super political intricacies, it's really hard for somebody from outside to really speak out, who doesn't watch things daily and is not actually there. But let's finish with the last paragraph. Israel looks strong, but its army is tired and its politics is split. Meanwhile, the most dynamic part of the Israeli economy, its tech sector, is highly mobile. Before October 7, tech workers dismayed at political divisions and erosion of the rule of law threatened to move abroad. They may one day make good on those threats. For many years, Israel depended on its American ally to tell it when to stop fighting. With Mr. Trump in the White House, those days are over. Israel now needs the wisdom to practice self-restraint. So, Alex, is that Israeli problem not enough self-restraint?
Well, it's all nonsense actually, because this whole thing about the tech sector, that they were threatening to move abroad. No, there were 5 or 6 activists who had companies. Most companies did not support having, because it's bad for business, right? A whole bunch people striking, right? And there was even cases of people who wanted to work and didn't feel that, and the company said, "Oh, we're going to be striking," and they were like, "Okay, I don't want to do that." And it's so I think that this is nonsense as well. Like that's just total nonsense. Yeah, erosion of the rule of law. I don't know how is there an erosion of rule of law. The examples they've given of the erosion of the rule of law is firing an attorney general who is not even the legal advisor to the government, firing the legal advisor to the government, and getting rid of the head of the Shabak. We're not saying let's make Yair Netanyahu the head of the legal advisor, and then let's make Sarah Netanyahu the head of the Shabak. Because that would be the erosion of the rule of law, right? You're still going to have the separation of all the powers. What do you mean? It's in every political system. They put in people that they believe are going to be supportive and trustworthy, right? and who aren't going to impede them from doing their job, and they change them out. Yeah. Well, Israel does look strong, but the army is tired and its politics are split. I want to say, I walked past the Knesset when they had the protest. There were about 50 people there. That's it, about 50 people. So this idea that it's 50 people, or however many, I work as well right beside Benjamin Netanyahu's residence, okay, on Rehov Aza. So I also see that it literally is a circus of, but it's a circus, it's not a massive circus of thousands and thousands of people. You have the most radical people who are often motivated for political gains, who are making these claims. And the mistake of this journalist is that they've actually listened to them. They have like this one Israeli, right? That's their source, and they're feeding them this kind of nonsense. It reminds me very much of all of the Tahrir Square experts that they had back in the time of the Arab Spring. I remember, so I was reading stuff, and it was very clear to me that their sources are people who live in like mansions in Egypt who want to get rid of Mubarak. Okay, like, and it's them. Okay, that's their source. So, but they didn't seem to have any normal people who were their sources. If you did, then you would have understood that the reason people were protesting was because they didn't have anything to eat. And more than that, they believe that, you know, all the money should be redistributed according to the Muslim Brotherhood. So, but they were writing, oh, Egyptians want democracy. Egyptians want freedom. Egyptians want to be like Sweden. They're just like Sweden. Yeah, because the person you're talking to, maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe they grew up in America. You're not speaking to an Egyptian. You know, and I saw this time and time again with the journalists. So it's profound laziness. Unless this is just an opinion piece, in which case this is my lazy opinion, then fine. But it's not a lazy opinion.
Yeah, it's very similar to the last article we've covered from the Economist, which video to that I'll put in the chat after the show. And as I said, it shows the sort of lazy approach to basically any sort of understanding of Israel, and it's clearly anti-Israeli. It's, you know, any sort of bad thing that happened to Israel is sort of being put down as like, okay, let's just mention it a little bit because we have to mention October 7, but let's jump over it. And you know, now that Israel is actually defending itself, let's do it from the, well, we care for Israel. We want Israel to, you know, stay secure. We just don't believe Israel defending itself will make it secure. And this is basically our way of showing that. With that, the article is over.
Well,
Alex, any last thoughts?
I think it's also interesting that that this didn't hasn't actually, you know, covered what the real what the real, I would say, um, analysis, the real maybe economics, okay, of how you may be able to judge how Israelis are feeling, right? So, you know, Israel is experiencing a massive baby boom that now, and it's mainly amongst the secular people, right? It's you know, massive baby boom, which now is taking it up to like 3.6 per woman, which is unheard of. Whereas Palestinians, what a real bummer. I mean, it's less than replacement. So all of these kinds of like recommendations that were being made, okay, was back in the day. Okay, it was the kind of the statisticians of doom. I guess it was always, you guys can't hold on to this territory because they're going to breed you out. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be, you're not going to be able to hold on to the territory. You're not going to be this. And now they've realized that, hang on, no, actually, we can't continue with that line. We can't, because it's nonsense. It doesn't work out. Now Israel's population in Israel proper is going to be 80% Jewish, 19% Arab, and in the so-called West Bank, now you're talking as well as in 10 years, there could be like 60-40 in favor of Israel. So I think that you're going to see a lot of these I can't say that word. I'm really sorry. Um,
Statisticians.
well, no one can say it. So I mean, it's maybe that's not the way you say it, Daniel. Um, so now you're seeing that they are now coming out with all of these kinds of other predictions that, yeah, you can't be too strong because the Arabs, they're not going to like you for it. Okay, just nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And by the way, I don't think that people have children in countries that they don't feel some kind of, um, you know, like I think that there is an optimism as well with Israelis, right? That they're feeling this surge of optimism. Okay, it could be fighting spirit, but for me, I think that the I would say that the future looks very, very bright, and that clearly triggers a lot of people.
Well, we'll continue triggering people in the upcoming shows as we will be back tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective. Thank you, Alex, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and bye bye.